At this point, I'm going to go ahead and ask the LP&L representative, whoever's going to handle this, Andy Burcham, Mr. Burcham, if you please come forward. We're going to do item 7.1, which is the LP&L, the Lubbock Power and Light Quarterly Report. Welcome, Mr. Burcham.
Good evening. Thank you all for having us this evening. And I do want to make mention that we do have a couple of board members here tonight. Greg Taylor, who's our chairman of the board, and Jerry Bell, who's vice chairman, are with us tonight. Dr. Gary Zing, the CEO of LP&L, is also here. Todd Kimbrough, our attorney, and Matt Rose, spokesman and assistant to the CEO. So again, thank you for having us. I've been asked to give a quarterly report, and I wanted to make it as brief as I can, but also give you an update on what is going on. A few things that I will cover tonight. We have been working on some improvements to our customer service over the last several months and are continuing to do that. I want to go over a few things there. I also want to go over some rates and some comparisons of our rates against other utilities across the state. A brief update on our billing office. And then also wanted to make mention that the financial 20th doing their field work, and so once they are complete with their field work and we've been able to present the financial information to the board, then we'll be able to bring that information back to you. So the first item I want to talk about is the customer experience improvements that we have been and we continue to be working on at LP&L, and there are a couple that you're already aware of, and thank you very much for approving the tariff changes last month. Effective December the 1st, a new tariff went into place for LP&L. It included rate stabilization, which, as you all recall, is where we have one summer rate and we'll have one non-summer or winter rate, which will provide predictability for our customers on their monthly electric statement. The next item that was included in that tariff was net metering, which is a new residential rate that will allow those customers who are interested in providing their own power through renewable energy sources like solar panels can do so. And so now there is a rate there for those folks interested in that. One other thing that has not been rolled out yet, but we're working very hard on, is a redesign of the monthly statement. There has been lots of discussion on the current statement and a little bit of difficulty in being able to understand and read that. We have gone through 6 rounds of changes. It seems like 60, but we've gone through at least 6. And we have gotten feedback both from LP&L and city staff. This has been a collaborative effort between city utilities and LP&L. The final statement is under review. We have presented some of these items to the board. We'll be presenting some of this to the council for input before we roll this out. Once we are at the point where we are ready to roll out the new statement, we're going to be very careful to make sure that all of our customers understand how to read their new bill. We'll be doing infographics, information on our website. We will be having meetings with key customers. We'll be having neighborhood outreach and media interviews just to get the word out to help make the transition to the new statement easier on everyone. We also are working on a redesign and enhancements to our website. We have undergone an informational and technological audit to understand what we want to include, what we want to move forward, how are ways that we can make our website much more user-friendly, and how can we integrate a lot of the customer service portal that we have right now. Sometimes it seems like you're going through several different sites to set up things. It'll be a seamless site, one nice looking, easy to understand, and again we'll be providing information to help that process, the conversion of that, be easier on our customers as much as possible. A couple other things I wanted to bring out tonight, and I have some slides that I wanted to show on the next 2 items. We are working on an outage management system, or many of you may have heard of it, called the Outage IVR, or Interactive Voice Response System. We're working on that. And then also just wanted to highlight that we still are among the lowest electric rates in the state, which sometimes gets a little bit forgotten. So I want to start off with an overview of our rates and how those rates would have impacted, and this is particularly with a residential customer. And the example that I wanted to use was a customer who would use 1,000 kilowatt hours a month. Obviously, none of us do that. Our consumption varies throughout the year. But if I use the same amount of kilowatt hours per month, we can see the impact of the rate changes each month. And so you can see over the past year, it's been relatively volatile. We've had a low last January for the customer using 1,000 kilowatt hours of about $71, a high in July of about $111. For December, the amount would be $87. If you look back at last December, that's about $82. So it's about a 6% increase over this time period last year. The green portion of that line you will see as flat, and that's a result of the approval y'all made last month on the rate stabilization. So from December through May, if you used 1,000 kilowatt hours a month, you would pay $87. That doesn't include tax and franchise fees. That's just the electric. So I want to make that clear. But you know, if you use that same amount every month, you'd pay that same amount through May. What I wanted to do next is to overlay natural gas prices as we've seen it over the last year. You can see that as our rates increased in May, June, and July, was also corresponded with increases in natural gas. We had dramatic increases during those 2 months, about 20%, which is really has not occurred in the last 8 years. That was a phenomenon that we haven't seen at that point in time. But it's interesting to note how the price of natural gas follows our rates over this time period. So, and my point is that that was really the main driver of the increased cost this summer, was the increase in natural gas. Obviously, yes, there was a rate increase, but really the real driving factor of increased cost, in addition to increased consumption during summer months, was also related to that natural gas price. What I also wanted to do is give some comparisons to LP&L's rate compared to other utilities in the state. I wanted to start with a comparison with Xcel Energy, and this again is about the last year. And you can see for the most part we were under Xcel, and again this is the customer using 1,000 kilowatt hours per month and about what they would have paid each month. And you can see on the right hand side I have a savings graph that if we had, because of the rates that we had in place, would have saved you $86 versus the rates if we had been under Xcel's rates. And then I also made a comparison of over the last 5 months, which 5 months ago was when the rate increase went into effect. We still would have saved $19 under the LP&L rates versus those charged by Xcel. The next slide is CPS Energy in San Antonio. Again, we were below CPS for the most part of the year, but after the rate increase in June, we were above CPS Energy for a period of time. We are now below them again. But over the course of the last 12 months, you still would have saved $107 under the LP&L rate versus CPS Energy. And for the last 5 months since the rate increase, you would have paid about $12 more. I did want to make mention that CPS Energy at the last city council meeting, well, a couple city council meetings ago in San Antonio, did have a rate increase of about 4.25%. So if that had been in effect during those summer months, we were about 2% different from CPS Energy during the summer. Austin Energy, you'll notice how flat their line is. They have rate stabilization, and that's what our line will look like going forward. But again, our rates have been below what you would have paid if you lived in Austin. You would have saved $131 over the last 12 months and $32 over the last 5. And then this slide shows investor-owned utilities across the state. El Paso, you have CenterPoint in Houston and Encore in Dallas, and you could see how substantially higher the amounts you would have paid living in those cities. And over the last year, LP&L rates were about $260 less than El Paso rates, $430 less than Dallas, and over $500 less than what you would have paid if you lived in Houston. And then again, on the last 5 months, you can see between $65 to $170 is the difference there from depending on where you live. That's the brief update on rates. I wanted to also, I've been asked to give an update on the underbilling from June that occurred. And just to remind everyone, even though this was a painful experience, you know, I think we've obviously learned from our mistakes. But 42,000 customers were impacted. We underbilled $3.3 million at that time. And as everyone knows, we are collecting that underbilling in a 6-month installment period. It began in November. It will continue through April. As of October 31st, we had collected a little under $300,000 from a little less than 20,000 of our customers. And then a month later, at the end of November, we'd collected about $660,000 of that under collection. One thing of note, and I'd been asked to provide this information, there are about a little over 5,000 customers, almost 5,500 customers, that had elected to pay that in full, that underbilling, and that accounts about $328,000 of that has been paid in full at this point. Another thing I wanted to mention, and this isn't necessarily related to the billing office, but obviously our call center, our customer service center, is open from 8 to 5. So anytime you call between those hours, there are folks available to answer your questions. But after hours, we have a much smaller staff, obviously. We have really after 5 o'clock, we have about 4 folks that are on dispatch from about 5 to 8:30. From 8:30 to midnight, there's 2. And then from midnight until 8 o'clock the next morning, there's 1 person on call to take calls during the middle of the night for power outages, things like that. Obviously, that's not nearly enough when you have a power outage, and you know, if you had 2,000 people lose their power and 500 call in at the same time, 1 person is not going to be real helpful. You're going to run into a busy signal. So what we've been working on very hard over the last couple of months is an outage management system. It's called Power On. And our intent is to roll this out in the first quarter of next year. And really what it is an IVR. It's a voice response unit that when you call in, you can touch tone or voice in your issues if you're out of power or whatever. The system has smart technology. If it indicates that calls are coming in from the same area, it can automatically begin leaving messages that we are aware of an outage in your area. So folks feel comfortable that we know what's going on. We know that there is an outage in their area. You can also have an option to have an automated callback. So, and then once that automatic callback occurs, if you're still out of power, you can opt to speak to a representative. And so we think this will be a dramatic improvement for our customers. Obviously, we have 40 lines, incoming lines, and again, if there's 500 people calling at the same time, there will be you're still a pretty good chance you would have a busy signal, but we feel like that we will be able to get people through this system much quicker, and we'll be able to identify where outages occur much quicker. And so I just wanted to let you all know about that as well. That is really an update at this point in time, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that y'all have.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Bertram, Andy, if I may, good to see you. I appreciate
Thank you.
A very thorough presentation. I visited with you guys on some of this, as I have with others on these quarterly reports, to try to give a heads up as to what at least I'll be looking at. So you've spoken to some of it. Let me ask you, Project Helping Hands, what I think we sometimes refer to as Roundup, how many people, I haven't asked this question before, I don't know if you've got the answer, how many people are in that program right now, and can you tell us what that program is just for public consumption, and maybe start with the program and then we'll worry about the numbers.
Sure. You know, and I have information for November, which this month there's about 2,700 customers who are participating in Project Helping Hand. And this month, those 2,700 customers donated a little over $3,000 to the program. And what the program is customers can elect to round up their bill. For example, if your bill was $81.20, well, we would round it up to $82. So that 80 cents that was rounded up would go into the Project Helping Hands program. And we have the assistance of Catholic Family Services, who identifies eligible citizens who are customers of LP&L who are eligible to participate in this program, and they let us know who those eligible customers are. We then are able to take those funds to apply to those customers' accounts. And so, it's a small amount right now, really, in the scheme of things, but it's a way that we can help the less fortunate, the low-income customers of LP&L to, when they have, issues in their finances, that they can get some assistance.
And Andy, again, not to be a curveball here, but it's been in place for a number of years. You know how many years now?
That I do not.
Fair enough. It's not to the meat of the matter, but let me ask you a question that maybe you can speak to. If not, perhaps Matt Rose. What all are we currently doing to promote the program? If we only have less than 3,000 people in it and it's generating about $3,000, it's beautiful for everybody that's participating, but for really to get the affordability program that we would like out of that, we're going to have much higher rates of participation. How are we promoting it? Can you speak to that?
Well, on occasion, and usually once a year, we'll run bill inserts related to the program. We do have information at the the billing office or at the customer service centers to hand out. We have a flyer, and we're actually getting more printed up right now, so folks can sign up for that. And there's also forms online that if you go to the LP&L website, you can click on the link to Project Helping Hand. It's right at the front center of our website. When you first sign on there, you can click on there, and there's a form where you can fill out the authorizations to allow us to do that.
Okay, fair enough. I'll just say very quickly, I hope we can look very soon at, as we get to the new year, people are making resolutions and people are establishing budgets. It might be as ideal a time as you're going to have. So if we could coordinate that. Speaking of the website, it's not a very good website currently. I know we're looking at what we can do to improve that. Launch dates on that, any idea?
Well, our goal at this point would be probably the April time frame of next year.
Okay.
So it's coming very quickly, and we're working. We have several folks working. Matt's working very closely on and very diligently on that. So we hope to have a very, very nice looking website that's easy to use to roll out in the next 3 to 4 months.
And that is the key. It's got to be user friendly. Currently, it's just not at all where it needs to be.
And I think we're all in agreement with that, and that's why
right.
we're really anxious to get this taken care of and rolled out.
No, I think we all appreciate the need. I want to say, if we're going to have a public utility doing electricity, we got to be best in the business. You're demonstrating that we may be, and hopefully we can maintain that, cheapest in the state. The reliability, the volatility, we're working on those aspects, but we've got to get there. Let me ask you, water is looking at something akin to, I think the term is lifeline water, something in the neighborhood of maybe 8,000 gallons for water. That's an affordability program. What can we look at in terms of LP&L? Can you speak to that?
Well, and I think, in the future we're going to continue to look at different types of rate structures. We obviously just went through a rate structure change in June. I hate to create any more confusion by changing it, very soon. But, we are going to be doing research this year on other alternatives. Are there ways? I know the city historically has had the inverted block rate structure for water, and that's one option to promote conservation. Plus, it provides some lower rates on the lower volumes. The Lifeline is a product out there that I know other electric utilities across the country have looked at, in addition to other water utilities. So, and a lot of those involve subsidies to different to lower income individuals. So, we're going to be looking at all these options going forward to see if there's a better way than what we're doing right now. But, again, like I said, with a new rate structure in place, I kind of hate to upset the apple cart too soon before we've had a chance to really go through any other alternatives that are out there.
Fair enough. I will say, really for the benefit of the two board members here, I will be asking at some point, and hopefully the board will take up that consideration. I know ultimately that's a policy decision, but something we ought to be considering for the reasons you've mentioned. Just going through very quickly, do we have any launch dates? I know the board has been diligently looking at either evening meetings or at least televising. How far along are we in that regard?
And I don't know that I've been involved in any of those discussions. Do you have any information?
If we don't, we've had a large board turnover. If you can, at least, if not at the next board meeting, speak to that. Certainly, we've got a new quarter coming up. If you guys could report back by mid-February, but hopefully you guys can let us know sooner and perhaps actually get that launched.
Sure.
Just going through maybe one or two other aspects. Smart meters, big issue. I was one of the, it was a narrow vote. We almost had those last budget, this current budget year. It's a big issue. And there is maybe 5, 10, 15, 20% of the population that's been fairly concerned about it. I think largely the population is looking for more information, whether they've spoken to it or not. This may be a bit of a board question. Are you aware of any plans for any public discussion, either specifically at an evening meeting or perhaps at one of the routine EUB meetings?
Well, and at this point, I don't, like you mentioned, the board being very new, they've formed some subcommittees, and I know we'll be having some discussion a moment ago talking about that. Really, at this point in time, when we get a call is really one of the main ways we know that there is an outage, and that would be dramatically improved with the use of the AMI technology. So, that's something that we'll continue to pursue and look into, and I know this board will be interested in having those discussions whichever way they decide to go.
I would just say for board consumption as well as the public, one of the biggest concerns for me is when you have a vocal minority, whatever percentage that is, adamantly against an item, the best way to address that, and I know you get this, Andy, in terms of good governance, is we've got to have that full-throated discussion in the public, and I think that's how you begin to, before you broach the decision to do or not, at least have that discussion for a number of months. Andy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Appreciate you being here. Thanks for the report.
Thank you.